Check 1, 2. Hey there. Good afternoon. It is still Wednesday, January 29th, and I am still that developer dad, that guy up there. And this morning we started working through the fairly sizable list of compiler warnings that I get when I build the DM's familiar locally and when it builds up in the cloud and stuff like that. And I want to finish that up. But before I do, my coffee is empty. I'm going to go for a little walk and refill that coffee. It'll just take a second. And it's still mostly hot. I can drink tepid coffee rather than goof around trying to get it microwaved and stuff like that to bring it up to a nice hot temperature. But that's okay. I say that a lot, but that's okay. And you know what? It's kind of a universal truth for 90% of the things that irritate us on a day-to-day basis. Like, this is really annoying, and I don't like it, but that's okay, because we can usually do something about it. And even if that's something we can do about it is to realize that it's not as big of a problem as we thought it might be, that's a perfectly fine solution. Now, compiler warnings in our C# and .NET code, those are okay for a little while. But if we don't go through our solutions and projects and code bases every so often and clean them up, those suggestions that there might, in some cases, be a problem can and frequently do turn into big problems later on, especially when we're trying to service customers or our coworkers in other departments that we've been building the software for, and so on. And so it's always a good practice to periodically, perhaps as you're nearing the end of a journey towards meeting a milestone, or before you do like a final, hey, this is good, let's go live kind of thing, it's a good idea to take an afternoon or a couple hours to go and clear up all, or if not all, as many compiler warnings as you possibly can before you do the final stamp it, here's what we're releasing, push it out the door kind of thing. And so that's what I'm doing today. Hey, Mischief the Cat, welcome back. Still working through compiler warnings, and I'm going to leave the NPC table entity file up and see. I'm gonna leave this open, and when I've gotten through the next 3 files that have warnings, because those are the last 3 files that actually have warnings on them, I'm going to take a look at this big honkin' to-do and see if I can find all of the places that would be impacted by me making this somewhat significant change. We'll see. All right, so let's get into the user access graph provider. I've noticed as I go through a lot of these, most of them are in the code that I wrote as I was migrating away from SQL Server towards using Azure Tables instead for object persistence for the DM's familiar app. And I was learning as I went, and I was very focused on making it go. And I've got quite a bit of real world hands on keyboard, eyeballs on screen testing of this stuff. So I'm pretty comfortable with the way it's working, and I want to clean the code up and get us to a place where we can stamp it as done. So user access graph provider, dereference of a possibly null reference on line 121. Here we are. For each var item in group members.value. Now, group members, let's just put a null coalescing operator on there. And directory object collection response, group members, maybe null here. Value is a list of directory object. You know what? Let's rename this to group members graph response. Okay. So there's that. And var group members equals group members graph response dot value. And now that gives us a nullable list of a potentially null list of directory objects. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the null coalescing operator and say if that value is null, we're going to go to an empty enumerable of directory object and use that here. So now we're always iterating over a concrete instance of that IEnumerable of directory objects. It definitely exists, but it may be empty if nothing's come back from our call to Microsoft Graph. And what are we doing in this method? We're loading a list of users for the application. I don't even know if this is actually used anywhere. It's declared in the iUser access. Let's pop out here. I want to take a look at it. We'll close that. And here's load user permission groups async, load app users async. I don't even know if this is actually used anywhere. You know what? What happens if I do this? Comment that, run in here, comment out load app users async, or load app users. Which one is this? This is load app users async. Network attached storage, cool. Comment that guy out. What's the other one I zapped? Load app user async. Let's comment this guy out. Toggle that out. Save, save. Now let's build. We'll do a full clean. And a full rebuild on this. Ah, yeah, that's a cool idea, dude. I may have blown some stuff up, or not. Namespace, iUser access, identity vendor, load user permission group, load user permission groups async. Okay. I think, you know what? I think we're good to rip this stuff out. I've got all kinds of green code in here. So let's just very quickly scan through this class file. Those can go away. Bye. Turn these back to private after working the migration code. Okay, graph configuration. Protected is fine. I'm going to get rid of this to-do. We've got our nullable logger. Here's our thing. There's the identity vendor. I believe I've got some constants. DM familiar tree. Oh yeah, those are over in the admin thing. And I need to take a peek at, come on, open Sesame. In IFX, SAS admin. Let's spin over here. And identity vendor. Let's see here, external service vendors. I am actually going to pull this class, the whole thing, copy, and inside here, I'm going to paste this. So we got that. Now I got to fix my indentation. There's that. And we're going to go static class external service vendors. Okay. Save. And then over here in the user access graph provider, let's do app constants. And we're going to need to import that namespace. And we're also going to need to add a reference. And I am in user access graph provider. So let's add a project reference to gametools.framework. So there's that. App constants dot external service vendors dot msintra. There we go. And I see in my dependencies that I've got a warning down here on packages and Azure Identity. Let's update this NuGet package to the latest. There we go. And we'll save everything and clean. Sucks about Cloudflare is you can't use webmail with a domain you bought directly from Cloudflare. Yeah, I've seen that. I've purchased my my domains from GoDaddy, and I really don't want to have to stand up multiple M365 accounts just to have email from them. So I'm proxying the email addresses that I need for this for the DM's familiar product over to exchange groups over in the thatDeveloperDad M365 and Exchange server, because I'm just paying for a single user license and a single email address over there right now. So that's what I am. That's what I'm dealing with. It's suboptimal, but it'll do for now. And it looks like I can get rid of all of those things. Except I see I want to turn off implicit usings because I think that's evil. I'm very surprised that that still works, but let's come over here and fix up all the anger code. Probably have to go to user access, come in here. Let's build this. Build. I have a feeling that this guy's using implicit as well. Yep. Disable. Save. All right, here we go. Now I can start fixing these things up. We'll use system.collections. I got to bring in threading tasks. There's that. Close this. What's this complaining about? Using game tools.user access. I probably do need to explicitly reference that. And let's pull that here using game tools.user access. Save. You know, I thought I fixed that. Here's load permission groups async. All right. Let's see if this gets fixed up as I fix the rest of the angry code. Oh yeah. Let's fix that. Fix that. Okay, so that fixed the interface complaints. That using directive is apparently unnecessary, but I think that's BS. Nope, it's good. Let's come down to the next problem here. And I'll hide this. Where is the next complaint? The name enumerable. You have to pull that in. Boop. Type or namespace null reference exception. That is in system. Pow. All right. Let's go up to the top of the file and make sure these are actually in the order I want them in. They are not. So what I like to do with my usings when I'm being this much of a stickler is bring in the system namespaces first. And I like to sort them hierarchically and then alphabetically. And then I'll bring in other third-party things, alphabetical order by root namespace and then the sub namespaces. And then finally, I bring in my custom project namespaces. I don't always get this picky about things. All right, Game Tools, User Access, MS Graph. Game Tools, User Access, boogity boo. All right, let's build the whole shebang. We'll do a full rebuild. And because I ripped those methods out, even though the code navigator said that they're not referenced anywhere, a healthy dose of skepticism never hurt anybody. So let's run the app and make sure it actually boots up. Okay, so it's able to bootstrap itself. And I use the term bootstrap, but it's got nothing to do with that CSS framework. All right, and I am logged in as me. NPCs, get my dudes. Here's my dudes. Let's sign out and sign back in. All right, seems to be okay. Let me try a couple of privileged activities here. So let's spin up a new NPC. And I feel like the battery in my mouse is about to die because I haven't charged it in a few days. Half-elf, female, glassblower, used to be an outlander. Neat. Let's see how she's described. Oh, so here's a fun thing. Let me grab this stuff. Control C. And let's pop open a new note. And I just want to make sure this pastes in a way that makes some sense. All right. So this pastes out kind of nicely. Just purely for giggles. Copy. Now, I'm not going to be adding this as a built-in feature. Here's Copilot. Good afternoon. I hope you're well. I am always super polite to AIs when I interact with them. Just because I love the Terminator movies, but I am terrified of the future that they display. And in case there's ever an AI or robot uprising, I want them to remember me as one of the polite ones. Can you please create an image that represents the fantasy character described below? Just purely for comedy. Let's see if we can do this. Look at that. Oh, that's fun. I'm going to download it and open it up in a different app. We'll open it up in preview. Holy smokes, it did good. I mean, LLMs still have some goofiness with text, but yeah. Oh yeah, there goes my mouse. It's out of juice. I've been running this mouse for, God, 7 or 8 years. So, not bad. So let's preview. Okay. That's great. But let's try this again. But please do not include any text on the image, and try to imagine her in her shop when generating the image. For reference, here's the description again. Pow. Now, a lot of people really, oh, wow. I love it. Fantastic. A lot of people really hate using AI art. I am not going to incorporate this as a capability in the software. However, You just saw what I did. And I think what I may do is I might go so far as to add a button that allows you to obtain or copy to the clipboard a prompt that you would paste into some publicly available AI model to generate those images for you. I am not going to incorporate AI image generation into this application for a couple of reasons. A, um, people have very, very, very strong opinions about it. For when I'm setting up materials for my own games, where the only people that will ever see these materials are my players, I am pretty okay with it. If I need artwork for something that I intend to publish, I'm going to have to do some crowdfunding and actually pay a human artist to create the images for me. For those cases, if I'm going to be selling something and the artwork is an intrinsic part of what I'm selling, then I am absolutely going to get that artwork to be produced by a human being. If it's for personal consumption or it's not intrinsic to the actual product, if I just need a quick and dirty illustration, I'm okay with using AI art for that. But for other cases where the artwork is a large part of the finished product, absolutely not. Pay a human being. But I wanted to show that it's that easy to take one of these descriptions and feed it into an AI image generator and get something usually within one or two attempts. Um, I'm quite pleased. Oh, I already killed the chat, I think. Well, let's try this one. Here she is. So yeah, I'm very, very impressed with that. I'm actually going to download that. I might use it if I ever need some sort of thing for that. I'm curious how big it is. So let's open this in a Finder window. And I want to sort by date added. And it's 187 kilobytes. That's not very big. That ain't very big at all. And she's cute. She's really cute. Oh, that's fun. But again, I can't publish with that image for my own personal, uh, I guess, morals, for lack of a better term. So there we go. And we have tested out that there are no ill effects from removing those extra methods, and we've proven that they're not called by anything. So let's find some green code. Scroll down here, all the way down to the bottom of this green code. Oh, you silly goose. I am such a goose. Honk, honk. There we go. Tear all that stuff out of there. We don't need commented out methods that are never going to get brought back to brought back into use. Saveroo. Token request context, blah, blah, blah. Secret cred, get token async, all of that stuff. Now, I've got this kind of thing scattered throughout, and I really ought to just take that credential provider and make it into a framework class at some point. But what I'm going to do is to do extract this code. There are other places in this app that have a secret client secret credential provider. Let's consolidate all those places into a single class in the framework project and use that instead of rolling custom code every damn time. Save. I'm gonna leave that to do there. Let's pop over to here. Add external service vendors class with allowed values for identity. Update identity vendor property. Fixed a number of compiler warnings. Commit and sync. Okay. And there we go. We can close down user access graph provider. Let's come back to problems. And let's clean. And what that does is it gets rid of all the build artifacts and all the stuff. Rebuild. It says that there are still 4 more problems. So we've got something in app user and OIDC event handlers. So let's go after app user. We know what to do here. We don't use a function arrow. We do that. And we'll describe it. Thank you, Mr. AI. And we'll commit. And we'll sync the changes. And as you see me working with this stuff, you'll notice, this is GameTools.userAccess, you will notice that I am relying on AI more and more as I go to automate the boring, repetitive stuff. There we go. Sync those changes. Yep, that's fine. And you know what? I did it for one. There's that. I don't have any unused usings in here. Let's pop in here. And we'll get rid of my unused usings. Come in here. 86 these. And we'll jump in here. And those are good. And since I did it before, okay, there's no usings there. I do have some usings here. Microsoft extensions configuration, and there's that. Save. All right. Boop, boop. And it's so weird to come back to the game tools solution that I started months and months and months ago and not have access to the improved DeveloperDad IFX library that I have over in the admin stuff because refactoring all of this stuff to leverage the capabilities that I've created inside that framework is going to be a big, big job. And things are working right now. They're working fine and dandy. So I don't want to derail the walk towards production and release by introducing that kind of refactor at this point in time. So OIDC event handlers.cs, that is down in my UI, and that's in the middleware. And here's that. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to go to the top of the file, pull that out, move security claims to the top, move that here, save. Okay, so there's that. Now let's take a look at what these null references might be. All right, await user access, load permission groups async, and let's go to the definition here. Bah. Go to implementations. No implementation found. That's all down here. So user access here is an I user access. Let's take a peek at this. List of string, load user permission groups. So I'm guessing that user access is the one that may be null, but it says user access is not null here. Dereference of a possibly null reference. Oh, yes, yes, yes. All right, what's this complaining about? Object identifier is not null here. Let's see. User access, admin access. We're calling get required service, so it's not null. Let's get rid of that null check there. We'll bump this. Here's my denullifying thing. Let me just do this. Comment that out. Doesn't match. Let's take a look up here. Let's just get rid of that. And we can zap that. Goodbye. Because load user permission groups async will always it'll always return a list of strings. Now, whether that is a populated list of strings or not is another question, but it will always return an object that is of type list of string. So that's that. So we can save this guy. And let's see about this other dereference. Groups is a list of string. And let's just do this. We'll get rid of that because we're using the getRequired service. And if it cannot load with this getRequired service thing, if it can't get an instance of an IUserAccess implementation, it's gonna blow up all over the place. So we're safe with directly calling into our dependency there. So let's save this. Reorder using directives, simplify group loading logic in OIDC event handlers. Commit, sync. Okay. Before we do the git dance, game tools, rebuild. Everything's good. We've got no more problems. So that's pretty cool. Now, since we're doing a code cleanup exercise, I want to flip through all of these assemblies and make sure I don't have a little warning thing on any of my dependencies. Dice engine, he hasn't got any dependencies. Framework. No fears there. How about in here? No fears here. What's in these analyzers? Code analysis, C#, yeah. Boogity boogity boo. I really ought to learn more about those analyzers. Managers. Here's all that. We're good there. Good here. Good here. Resource access, I believe we're all set, but let's just flip through them real quick. Oh, we got a out-of-date package here, so let's update this package to the latest. Take a look at NPC access and Azure Tables. We're up to date there. Rule set, this is just hard-coded C#. I don't believe that there's any real dependencies in there. Let's take a look in here. We're good here. Dependencies on LLM access appear to be all good. Yep. Look at rule sets. These are just standard C# class libraries. Good there. Less worried about tests. Blazor client packages. Those are all good. Frameworks are all happy. All right. Commit. Sync. Okay. In you go. Now, let's do the merge dance. We'll check out main. Sync. All right. Go back to code cleanup. And I got to go git merge from main. There shouldn't be any changes to merge in, so therefore no conflict, but it's a good habit, even when you're working alone, to do that kind of thing. And let's just synchronize one more time, just in case. And I need to come up in here, go to code. Code cleanup had recent pushes 1 minute ago. Let's compare and pull request. Actually, before we do that, come over to the actions and make sure the most recent CI builds. How's it going, League? I have an awful lot of my repositories marked as public. This GM tools, it was public, but because I'm about to release it as an actual software as a service project, my wife talked me into making this repository private. Now, I'm going to go through an exercise real soon, just on my own time, where I pull out the stuff that isn't really a trade secret or anything like that and put that into a public repository. But if you go to the thatDeveloperDad organization on GitHub, that's me. And any of the public repositories that are up there are free to download and learn from and, turn into or use in your own projects and stuff like that. Absolutely. Yes. I'm a big believer in open source and contributing open source. As a matter of fact, if you do that and you find some value in it, I'd be delighted. Well, I'm turning this into software as a service, like this particular product, but the admin backend and so on and so forth. You're gonna need that kind of software between your product and your identity provider and your online store and all of that stuff. I don't know that you'd be able to take the admin product and turn it into a SaaS application that is flexible for every scenario everywhere. People have been trying to do that for decades. So the admin backend APIs and the way all of that stuff strings together, you're going to have to code that on a case-by-case basis, like for each product or each family of products or companies or what have you. The framework is open source, but it's based on teaching and writing by another organization that I've learned from. But download it, modify it, use it, please. and the application framework or the architectural framework wouldn't work as a SaaS product. It's sort of the stuff that goes underneath or inside the code. But by all means, that's kind of why I'm doing this thatDeveloperDad thing, so that I can kind of give back some of the learning and knowledge that I've accumulated over my 20 plus years of making software, just kind of give it back to the community that's given me so much on my own personal journey. And if I can help you learn and get better, beautiful. That makes me very, very happy. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you're gonna use it or if you're gonna take my code and turn it into a commercial product, we're gonna have to talk about that. My experience working with CEOs and managers. I try to stay as far away from CEOs as I possibly can. But managers, I mean, when I'm working for another company, I work with managers all the damn time. If you're building software for a company, you've got a manager. And my advice to anybody who is working in a corporate setting as an individual contributor um, is to become buddies with that manager and develop, a positive, solid working relationship with them. Because the managers that I work with or that I have worked with, they have the philosophy that they exist to help the team and the members of the team succeed. I've been privileged to have some very, very good managers. I've had a couple of managers that aren't so great over the years, and I've learned a lot from them about how not to run a team. But um, the relationship between a manager and the individual engineers on a software team should absolutely not be adversarial. Absolutely not, because that does not make the software happen. Why do I stay away from the CEO? Because typically the CEO is operating in a thought space that is semantically incompatible with the thought spaces I live in as a software maker. Um, and I mean, if you look at the news and see how things are in the world and everything like that, CEOs are getting a bad name, just in general. Um, I mean, I guess it depends on the CEO. If they're there to help everybody succeed and help the company succeed and everything like that, great. If they're just there to make themselves and their buddies rich, um, then I want very little to do with them. And that's all I am willing to say about my personal opinions about modern corporate structure in America in this day and age. Does that help answer your question? Um, in a blunt, perhaps politically incorrect statement, I think of all of the roles in a business that should be replaced by an artificial intelligence, the C suite is probably the first ones that should probably be done away with, in my opinion. um, I've worked in small group indie environments a couple of times. A couple of the organizations that I've worked in, their development group is tends to self-organize and run itself like a small indie environment within the context of the business itself, and that is, in my experience, the most enjoyable working environments that I've participated in directly. Um, I like to participate in and lead development teams that kind of more closely resemble, say, a raid group or a dungeon party in World of Warcraft, where you've got, your engineers are typically DPS. You've got a product owner who, if they're doing it right, is tank. And you've got your scrum master who, if he's doing it right, is your healer. And sometimes the tank. So you want a couple of paladins or druids in product owner and scrum master. You need people that can either tank or heal as needed on a situational basis. For your engineers, you need DPS. And sometimes the person who's saying, go down this hallway, target that guy, focus on that one, frequently that's a DPS. That's one of your engineers that's actually calling the shots of how you run the dungeon or how you build the feature. And ideally, you want whoever is most familiar with whatever adventure your team is on, you want whoever's most familiar with that to be the one directing where we go. And then your scrum master, your architect, your tester, your product owner, all of those folks, their support. They're in those tanking and healing, and frequently they'll take on damage roles as well, like DPS. So yeah, I mean, those are ideal teams that I've most enjoyed working on. And another analogy that I've used in the past is a rock band, where because everybody always talks about, oh, I want rock star developers. I'm like, yeah, great, as long as you make sure at least one of them is a drummer and at least one of them is a bass player. Full disclosure, before I was a software developer, I was a bass player in a touring recording band. So I'm biased towards bass playing philosophy. But your drummer and bass player, your drummer is the one who makes the rhythm and the groove. They propagate it out to the rest of the band. The bass player establishes the tempo and the groove and works with the drummer to give everybody a safe, stable structure to come back to after they've done their solos. That's actually, that statement is based on a quote I read from Noel Redding, who was the bass player for the Jimi Hendrix experience back in the 60s, where he viewed his role as bass player as providing that safe, stable bedrock for all of the songs, so that when Jimmy or the other musicians in the band would go off on their solos or explorations or jams or whatever, they would always have somewhere to come back to and recenter what they're doing to give their own individual contributions context within the overall whole of whatever piece of music they were performing. Similarly, in software, your bass player or architect, tech lead, etc., is the one that provides a safe place for the other individual contributors on the team to come back to and say, okay, so I did this cool thing, and now I need to bring it back to the context of the overall feature or product that we're working on. Let's do that. And that's why in any team of rock stars, you need a bass player. You need a drummer who's just driving the bus, taking that tempo and the groove that the bass player is setting and making sure everybody else can hear it. And then, of course, you've got your individual contributors. You got the guy who's an absolute maniac with language models. You've got another guy on the team who can make a browser window sit up and bark and beg for treats and all of that stuff. And they're all contributing their own pieces to the overall composition. And it's the bass player and the drummer who are in charge of keeping that overall composition in mind and making sure that the rest of the group has a place to plug their stuff into that overall composition. Squash and merge. I started off as the water boy when I was first learning, and I tried to be the lead singer for a while, and then I tried to be a lead guitarist for a while, and I discovered that my personality and the way my mind works just slots better into that bass player role. And the code cleanup feature branch has been merged into main. I'm going to delete it. Bye. I constantly look at League of Lego Boy here is asking if there was times in my career that I thought to myself, this isn't how humans are supposed to be treated. And I say that to myself on an almost daily basis, frequently multiple times a day, if I'm being real about it. I look at the world today and the way people are treating each other, the way people are treated at work by the companies they work for, and so on. And I sigh and shake my head, and it makes me sad that that people in positions of power or positions of authority are making these decisions and making like policy decisions, whether it's governmental policy or corporate policy, that has little consideration for the effects that these policies have on the other individual humans that are participating in the group activity. Yeah, we're absolutely not meant to treat each other as resources or numbers or anything like that. We're all people. I don't care who you are, who you look like, who you're going on a date with Friday, where you go on Sunday morning. I don't care about any of that. If you and I are working on the same project and we're trying to do the same thing, I want to help you be the best at what you're doing as I possibly can. And I would hope that you're going to help me be the best at my role as I possibly can be. And if we do that with a plan and a strategy, and we're all in agreement on what we're trying to move towards, if we all work together and support each other instead of constantly trying to screw the other guy over so that we get the bigger cookie at the end of the day, I think we'd be in a much better place. And all of that said, and this has been a fantastic conversation. Thanks for coming in and asking these questions, League. I've been avoiding hopping up on a soapbox since last Monday, but the questions you've asked and the way you've asked them have given me an opportunity to kind of make some statements that I've felt compelled to make since about 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Monday, January 20th. I think the people that are navigating the ship and telling the rowers how to row are taking us in the wrong direction. And those of us that are rowing and swabbing the decks and stuff like that probably know better. Like as a collective group, we already know what we need to do. We just need the authority to do it. And stop waiting for the navigator and the people that are in charge. We have to stop waiting for them to get on board, and we just have to take the ship in the direction that actually works well for everybody, including the navigator and the people telling the rowers how to row. So, and I think we need to make sure that whatever actions we take do as little harm as possible, preferably none. How's that? All that said, I've had a successful couple of streams today. I thank you for joining me. League, if you haven't already, please follow. And all of that stuff. And I'll be back at this hopefully tomorrow morning at 10. I say hopefully because my mental health has been in the absolute toilet for probably the past couple of months. It's just gotten worse and noticeable over the past few weeks. I'm still looking for work. I've been out of work for like 8.5 months at this point, and my bank account's getting really small, but my bills aren't getting any smaller. So that's taking a toll on me. But yeah, I'll be back at it, preparing to release this thing as a product in very, very short order. So thanks for hanging out. And until next time, be kind to yourselves and happy coding. Bye now.